Good afternoon. Okay, thank you for that 1% response. And hi, kids. All right. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered what makes the difference with people who are successful versus those that are not? And this being a life hacking conference, life hacking is very much about increasing your efficiency, your effectiveness. What is the difference that makes the difference in terms of success and performance? Starting way back in 1982, working with athletes. I've worked with Olympic athletes, and then later in life working with business people, and then more recently with entrepreneurs, considering what is it that makes the difference in terms of your success. And in 2012, I published this book on self-leadership, basically because I really believe that all success starts from the inside and then becomes an outside process. And the simple definition of self-leadership is the ability to influence yourself to achieve your objectives. And that's what successful people do. They influence themselves. They influence themselves to have extra music when they don't need extra music. They influence themselves to really change the environment in so many different ways. So the question that I find when I coach people to be successful is even the most successful people have self-doubt. And I don't know whether in this room, whether you have ever had this question, whether you are good enough, rich enough, powerful enough, good-looking enough to be successful. I mean, there's a lot of young people, a lot of students here, and maybe you're still in your 20s, but somebody wrote an app and sold it for $1 billion already. The bar is pretty high. If you're in a job and somebody gets the promotion in advance of you, are you starting to compare yourself? The Buddha said that comparison is the seat of all unhappiness. But I have a message for you today. Don't panic. And most of you are not old enough to recognize where this phrase comes from. It comes from a radio show and a movie which originally came from a book by Douglas Adams. And don't panic. And actually, just in terms of panicking, I wonder if somebody could ask the people on the outside if they wouldn't mind either joining or leaving the room. That would just be awesome. Don't panic is the cover of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has this basic premise that the universe is big and scary. But if you have certain techniques, you can traverse the universe, which is really an early life hacking book. I've been working on helping people to take themselves from where they are to where they need to be. And I've been working on what would be a methodology to do that. As yet, I haven't been able to come up with a really good acronym for it, but if anybody's got any good ideas, I'll talk to me afterwards. And the first thing I think we need to look at is the situation that we're in. When we come into the planet, this existence, at this particular time, space continuum, we are born into a situation. Our gender, ethnicity, the religious or non-religious perspective of our parents, the political environment. And sometimes we're born with a silver spoon in our mouth, and sometimes we're born into poverty and into prejudice or deprivation. But the reality when you look at successful people, regardless of that, people become successful. But your situation is your situation, and from your situation, you develop habits. Behavioral habits that either are working for you or not working for you. And coupled with that is the inner dialogue. And in some of those cartoons, you see that there's the angel on one side and the devil on the other side, or the angel on this side and the devil on this side, speaking into your mind, either you can do it or you're a loser, one way or the other. And what I found, and I fly a lot, the first client that brought me to Singapore was Singapore Airlines, is that you will hit turbulence in life. But the interesting thing is on a plane, when you hit turbulence, generally you still land at your destination. Turbulence is inevitable. Now, some of you are too young to have hit turbulence. In my life, I've hit it a number of times. I never wish bad things to happen to anybody, but neither do I wish that it does not happen to you. Because when bad things happen, we learn about ourselves. We learn to move from our SHIT towards what we really want. And this is where the shift happens. And in this case, the shift, the F, is focus. And I only have a very short period of time to talk to you today, but I want to talk to you about shifting your focus. Let me tell a short story, and they have to be short today. But one of the periods of turbulence in my life, I had lost all my money. I had, around 40, I was financially independent. I had houses, I had cars. I was feeling pretty good about myself. But one of my investments went bad. It went so bad I was $300,000 in debt with zero assets, living in a backpackers hostel in King's Cross. If you know anything about Sydney, it's not a nice area. And I'd lost my cars and I had to catch the bus. Now, buses are great. They take you from point A to point B, but when you've driven in the latest Range Rover, it's a come down. So I was not feeling that happy with myself. I was not feeling that happy with the world. And it started to rain, which added to that general mood of gloom. But when the bus came and I stepped on the bus driver said to me, "Isn't it a great day?" Now, my natural response was to correct him and say, "No, it bleep bleep isn't a great day." But there was something about his energy and his intentionality that impacted me, and I kind of went, "Yeah, it is." Now, here's the thing. I taught positive psychology. I'd worked with peak performance, but I was suffering. And the interesting thing is, it's okay to have book knowledge, but when you actually have to really walk your talk, when things are not going well, that's the test. But this guy, who is not a motivational speaker, impacted me. And I sat on the bus and I looked around. And this bus was weird, because if you've ever traveled on the bus, people don't usually smile much, right? But everybody on the bus was smiling. And then I watched as we stopped and other people got on the bus and the same pattern occurred. He said, "Isn't it a great day?" And either they were kind of shocked like me, or they went, "Yes, John, it is," because they knew his name. And as we moved into the city, people started to get off the bus. And they started going to offices of banks and insurance companies. And I thought, these banks and insurance companies or investment houses need to pay John a Christmas ang pao, because he was increasing the performance of their employees, and they didn't know about him, because he was creating a shift. So a question that I have for you in your life, whether you lead your life or not, are you the driver or the passenger? Now, I like to be the passenger. I have overcome some of the turbulence, I've made some of the money back, and I now fly around the world as an inspirational, motivational speaker. I fly at the front of the plane. When I get off, there's a guy with a name card to pick me up and drive me in a limo. Interesting, those name cards are always spelt wrong. Have you ever noticed that? But anyway, so I like sitting in the back of the limo and maybe watching a movie on my iPad while I'm being driven to a nice hotel. So it is nice to be a passenger. But there are parts of your life you should not be a passenger in. You know, who's making the decision about your career? Who's making the decision about how much money you're earning? Who's making the decision about your leisure time? Who's making the decisions around what kind of life you live? In these cases, you need to be the driver. So what we're going to do is it's after lunch and you've all had a wonderful lunch. Let's everybody stand up for me, please. Participate, 100% participation. What I need you to do is put your right thumb out in front of you and plant your feet shoulder width apart. Would you do that for me? Your right thumb, everybody. If the person next to you has got their left thumb out, just correct them, just gently, that they don't know their left from their right. That's okay. Now, what I want you to do is, without moving your feet, only moving from the waist, keep your eyes on your thumb, and just gently rotate around to the right as far as you believe is possible. Now, try not to kill the person next to you. Great. Notice where you went to. Fantastic. Come on back. Excellent. Now, the question I have for you in this particular scenario, were you the driver or the passenger? Well, who asked you to do it? You. Yes. So the level of your performance was you complied, the speaker asked you to do it, you had 12 years at school, you've been conditioned to respond, you did what you were asked to do. Well done. But you're not leading your life. So let's do it differently. Just relax your arm by your side and just trust me for a moment and close your eyes. Just close your eyes. But this time, what I want you to do with your eyes closed is just to imagine a goal or an objective that you have. Something that you would like to achieve. Maybe it's a promotion. Maybe it's to get a job. Maybe it's to launch an app. Maybe it's to be more creative. Maybe it's to find the person that you want to be with. Maybe it's to get out of a relationship that's toxic. Whatever the goal and objective you have, just pick one and have that as your why to perform. Now what I want you to do is now in your mind's eye imagine, without moving a muscle, this time imagine rotating to the right, but this time imagine going further than before. And you can choose 10%, 20%, 30%, it's your choice. But imagine with 100% belief that you can go further because you have a reason. Now open your eyes. Thumbs up, feet in exactly the same position. Now this time when you rotate around, it's not for me, it's for your goal. As you stretch around, it's a metaphor for you stretching towards what you want to achieve this year or in the next 3 to 4 years. Eyes on thumbs, rotate around, let's go around. And come on back. Now some of you have done this before and stretched a hell of a long way the first time. If you now need to see a chiropractor, I'm sorry, I've got no insurance, apologies. But for those of you who went further, please just raise your hands. That's the majority. If you did not raise your hand, you have no imagination, and I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you about that. Give yourselves a round of applause and have a seat. Thank you. So the point that I want to share in the very, very tiny amount of time I have with you is that we can heal our own life, we can stretch ourselves when we apply certain principles and formulas. And because I came from a medical background, I kind of like this acronym, Dr. I. Dr. I allows you to heal your own life or to lead your own life. And I'm going to share with you what the D, R, and I stand for. D stands for decision. And decision, the root of the word decision is the same as the root of the word incision. When a surgeon makes an incision, he or she cuts into the body, and they're very confident, and they get around and they do it. They don't prevaricate, they don't procrastinate. When we make a decision, we have to say yes to what we want, and we have to say no to what we don't want. Now, a lot of motivational and inspirational speakers, many of them friends and colleagues of mine, will keep saying, say yes to your dreams. But very few people talk about saying no to what you don't want. And in my experience, most people are very uncomfortable about saying no. Because when we're about 2 or 3, and I've got small people here, all right, when they say, I want to do this, all right, a well-meaning adult says, no, you can't, all right? All right? No, you can't play on the iPad for 10 hours, all right? And when a child says no, the adult says, don't you say no to your father. Don't you say no to your mother. Now, I don't do that, by the way, but some of you had the expression. So some of you in this room, in fact, at least 50% of you are uncomfortable with saying no, and you know who you are. People ask you to do something, and you go, oh, I don't really want to do it, and then they go, oh, please, and you go, okay, and you do it, but you hate yourself for doing it. The most important thing to say no to is the no in our own mental framework, the limiting decisions, the discounting that we do for our own self. So let's just see if this audience is any good at saying no. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand up. When I do, I want you to take a stance as if you're doing Qigong, Kung Fu, you're protecting your space. You will be Gandalf on the bridge saying, you shall not pass. All right, so you understand what I'm asking you to do? Everybody stand up one more time. Stand up. Get your hands up. Hands up. Get your hands out in front of you. Now, there's more of you than me, so when you say no, I should feel the force. It should push me back into this screen. Ready? So I'm going to count 3, 2, 1, and you're going to say no. The guy here's got hands in his pockets. I don't know how you're going to do that, right? Hands out, right? We're going to say no, and we need to hear it. I need to actually get the message to the people who are talking while I'm talking that no is what's going to happen. Ready? 3, 2, 1. No! No, I didn't feel a thing. Now look, it's got to come from here. It's no good coming from here. It's no good you doing it because I asked you to do it. Think about something in your life that you really would love to get rid of. A doubt, a fear, a procrastination, something you love to get rid of forever. And if you could just say no with 110% reality, it would be blown out. That excuse would be gone and it would never come back. Feel that, now say no. 3, 2, 1! No! Better. Now if we were just to take that and double it, we're close. 3, 2, 1! No! That's good, feels good. Hold on to that feeling, take a seat. So, in terms of a decision, we have to be able to say first no to what we don't want. That opens up the space to say yes, but before we do that, we have to get rid of the buts. And this is the first part of your Spark Summit Challenge. Is if you've got a but, do you know what I mean by yes but? Right, those people, oh, yeah, I could be successful, but I could get a promotion, but, you know, I could be an entrepreneur, but, I could write a book, but, you know what your buts are? And as a coach, I hear this all the time. Oh, yes, I could be a speaker, but. So your first part of your challenge is 30 days of a but diet. All right? And your butt will get smaller. 30 days of a but diet. Now, what do you put in its place? You put and. That's difficult, and I could get better. I can't do that yet, and I could learn. Now, each time you say but, now you need to stop and replace it with an and. Now, if you want to put a rubber band around your wrist and pull that rubber band out and ping it every time you say but, that works. If you want to take the rubber band off and switch it to the other wrist each time you say but, that works. The goal is to keep it on the same wrist all day without having to swap it. That's the first part of your behavioral change challenge. The next part is to say yes to what is it that you do want. Now, does anybody here do lottery, 4D, Toto, anything like that? If you won $10 million this afternoon, would you say, oh, yes, that's nice? Or would you go, yes? Now, we can do this one in sitting. Let's just see how good your yes is. And I want a gesture in the air. 3, 2, 1. Yes! Yes! So it's really easy to say yes to what you want. You've got to make the space by saying no to your buts first. Now, D stands for decision. R stands for responsibility. We are responsible for our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own speech, and our own actions. Nobody else is responsible for your thoughts, your feelings, your words, or your actions. Now, you know, if my son, who's cute and he's down here, but if he comes home from school and says, oh, John made me do it, I'm going to say, nobody can make you do anything you don't want to do, right? Right? You don't know anybody called John, that's okay. That's why I said John, right? Okay. So, because, you know, it's about personal responsibility, isn't it? Nobody can say something if you don't want to say it. Now, there are exceptions. If somebody puts a gun to your head, possibly. What I hear all the time is, oh, he made me angry, or she made me feel inferior, or they made me feel unworthy. Nobody can make you feel unworthy or inferior or angry unless you give them the power. So the responsibility is owning our own emotions and our own actions. Now this takes practice, and in 20 minutes we don't have the time. I do have a 2.5-day program where we learn to take full responsibility and accountability in all areas of our life, in our relationships, in our finances, and in our health. And the last part of the acronym is I for influence. Because once you can influence yourself, you begin to influence other people. You become an electromagnet. You begin to attract the people into your life that you need to be successful. Because successful people recognize other successful or potentially successful people. And in recognizing those, there is an electromagnet. As you become I for influential, you are I for intentional. You know what you're saying yes to, you know what you're saying no to, things change, things happen. Decision, responsibility, and notice I put a hyphen in there because when you control your emotion, your ability to respond is your response, responsibility. And influence, D-R-I. So let's move on with the challenge. You're going to hear lots and lots of other speakers today, and you're going to have lots and lots of different challenges today and tomorrow. I've given you a framework which will help every other challenge succeed. Because every other challenge will be about saying yes to something, and it will be about saying no to something. I've asked you to say no to your butts. But what I want to do is create a social challenge for your commitment to change. The rubber band is a personal one. But when we look at the psychology of behavioral change, peer pressure, social visibility makes the difference. So what we're going to do is, hands up who does not have a Twitter account. Yeah, That's sad. Get one, they're free. But the majority have, so you can just go, I'm feeling really good about myself right now. I've got a Twitter account. Because the app that we're going to use for this is Twitter. My Twitter account for this process is @self-leadership. Self-leadership is the process that we want to do. Join on to Self-Leadership. The slide deck will be published on Self-Leadership. The link to that, when I finish this, I will publish the link to the slides. You will be able to download those or view those at Self-Leadership. And what I want you to do is over the next 24 hours, publish on this Twitter feed, I'm going to say yes to this and I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to say yes to this, I'm going to say no to that. And then just check the Twitter feed every day for the next 30 days and I will give you some tips and some help. And if you want to share your successes and your challenges, I will respond to that. Now, I make a lot of money coaching people. This is free. But, in this case, but is valuable because but discounts what precedes it. This is free, and it's only free and useful if you use it. No point having something free if you don't use it, right? Okay. For those of you that want to and do more, then come and join me in October for Lead Your Life, and you have a brochure with an unbelievably discounted fee for this summit because we're actually creating a movement of people who want to take responsibility and influence others, and I'd love to see some of you there. So now what I want to do is to finish with a piece of reflection. Up here, I have a chessboard. And in this last piece of my talk, I want you to imagine that you are a piece on a chessboard. And you get to choose whichever piece that feels right for you. And I'm going to go through them very slowly and see what connects. The first piece is the pawn. It moves forward very slowly and is easily sacrificed very early in the game. And if you're feeling like a pawn right now, you're feeling pretty powerless. The next piece is the knight. The knight is a risk-embracing piece. It jumps forwards, it jumps sideways, it surprises the enemy. And if you're a risk embracer, you might feel like a knight, the entrepreneur. Next piece is the bishop. This is a piece that moves diagonally across the board. This is for people who don't like going in the standard way. They like to cut across. They like shortcuts. And if you're a shortcut kind of person, maybe you're the bishop. Next comes the rook or the castle. This is a very solid defensive piece. And some of you might feel like that. You're not quick to act. You might be in a support role for a leader because the rook is closely associated with the king. Now, let's mention the king. Some of you are thinking, hey, I'm the king. I'm in charge. I'm the king. And looking at some of the ladies here, you immediately went, I'm the queen. All right. Now, the king is the most important piece on the board because the moment it falls, the game is over. But the king needs the support of everybody else. The queen, whilst she can move every which way, of course also is going to be under attack. So I don't know which piece on the chessboard you chose. But allow me to tell you what you should have chosen. You should choose to be sick and tired of being a piece of wood being pushed around by somebody else. Because it's a trick. Because as a leader of your own life, you can step back from the strategy of a chessboard. You can play multiple chess games. You can be any role that you choose. You can make the decision. You can take the responsibility. You can become intentional and influential. It's your choice. Would you like to take the challenge? Yes or no? Thank you. My name's Andrew Bryant.